every person across the world has a self-image. It's that inner dialogue. And so when you're going through something as intimate as a divorce, and when I think about intimate, I think about heart intimate, right on the inside of your heart, because the size of your heart is your life's true currency. And when there's that separation happening, it's that fragmentation of that heart center. And so the self-image takes a hit because you are considerate and you're thinking about, well, what's my part in this? How am I responsible in this? Because that's a sign of a healthy self-image is that self-reflection of your part in the shift and change in that relationship. The challenge comes when that person doesn't take a self-image hit and doesn't have that reflective pause to say, what's my part in this? Because we always play a part.
Welcome back to The Divorce Circle, the podcast where we explore emotional, financial, and spiritual layers of rebuilding your life. I'm your host, Sabeena Bubber. Today I'm speaking with Ranbir Puar of Pure Atma. Ranbir empowers truth seekers to reconnect with who they truly are. Through her work, which bridges the mind, body, and spirit, she helps clients rebuild their self-image, unlock resilience, and create independence so they can live fully, deeply, and expansively. She is also a clinical hypnotherapist using subconscious transformation to help clients shift out of survival mode and into self-trust, confidence, and clarity. Her approach helps rewire old patterns, release emotional blocks, and define success on their own terms. If you're navigating a divorce, a transition, or just craving a deeper connection with yourself, this episode is going to speak to your soul. Let's get started. Thank you, Ranbir, for being here. I wanted to give our audience a little bit of background. We met in 2013, and I was on a downward slope. I was having a major life/mental health crisis, and I met you at a kid's birthday party. And it wasn't even for a child that was a friend with any of my kids. So I feel like somehow the universe put me standing in front of you. And within moments, I was in tears, and I knew that you would be an answer for me, and I asked you to help me. And that spiral downward for me turned into a trajectory that went up, and our relationship has changed the trajectory of my life. And I'm really grateful to have you here as my guest so we can share your gifts with our audience.
Thank you, Sabeena. You're trying to make me cry in the first minute. That's my job. I'm teasing. It's an honor, and I'm so thrilled for you and being able to bear witness to, a person is, what I do is a guide. And when somebody just soaks it all up the way you do and make it your sort of life's mission to connect with that big self of yours, and just watching that plane continue to go up is just so beautiful.
Thank you.
What an honor.
Thank you. Hopefully we can help some people today to find their higher purpose and to take that plane higher into the sky.
I hope so.
So you describe yourself as a truth seeker.
Mm.
What does that mean? How do you know when somebody is available or ready for that deeper level of inner work?
Right. I have taken a great deal of time in my practice to hone that skill of that knowing. And I think a big part of it is the somatic practices, really connecting with the inside of me and being able to sit in the truth of what's being reflected to me. And in scientific terms, it's neuroception. My nervous system reads your nervous system. And I can tell if there's a window there of opportunity for me to offer that support. And sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. And it's really important to take that time to make that assessment and sit with it to make sure that you're the right fit for the person sitting in front of you. But it's definitely important to take that time to do that assessment on the inside of you, not just with your thinking mind.
How do you know when somebody's on the edge of transformation?
Well, usually people come to me when they've tried everything else and it hasn't worked. And so when they've come to me, in fact, my business is almost entirely referral based. So they've heard about me from somebody else. And so how do I know they're on the edge of transformation? For me, it's a bit of a cheat because somebody's told them to come see me. But I also do a gut check on it because our gut is our second brain, and just being able to know and ask the right questions. And I think questions are really telling if someone's ready to do that heavy lifting, because I'm that type of person that holds your hand when you need, but I put your feet to the fire when you need to. And I think that's important for the line of work that I'm in. So it takes some time, and you have to spend time together on an intro call or conversation just to see if that person is ready, because if they're not, it can do damage.
And there's resistance, and
Yes.
resistance to change is a very challenging thing to come up against. Somebody has to be open and willing to
Yeah, yes and no.
see.
I think we're all resistant to change. So if that, I think that it's more, the resistance is, it's my job to push that envelope a little bit on the resistance side, but it's more of that, do you feel that this is the point you're going to decide? Have you made that decision? And I think maybe that's probably the answer. Have you decided to change? And the resistance will still be there. And the resistance is there till the day we leave this world. And it should be, because we want to be continually growing. And so, yeah, can't use that one.
So self-image is often shattered when it comes to divorce. So when somebody is going through that identity crisis, why do people's identity take such a hit during the divorce process?
It's a really good question. So if we backtrack and talk about the self-image, it's the way you speak to yourself when you're alone with your thoughts. And it's a quality, it's a first principle of the human experience. It's one of the foundations of my work. And it's something you have in every person across the world has a self-image. It's that inner dialogue. And so when you're going through something as intimate as a divorce. And when I think about intimate, I think about heart intimate, right on the inside of your heart, because the size of your heart is your life's true currency. And when there's that separation happening, it's that fragmentation of that heart center. And so the self-image takes a hit because you are considerate and you're thinking about, well, what's my part in this? How am I responsible in this? Because that's a sign of a healthy self-image is that self-reflection of your part in the shift and change in that relationship. The challenge comes when that person doesn't take a self-image hit and doesn't have that reflective pause to say, what's my part in this? Because we always play a part.
Even if we're the victim.
Yes.
So if there's been some infidelity and the other partner has stepped out, or you're the one being left, there's
always a part.
There's still a part that they take in it, and taking the time to reflect.
Absolutely.
So how do you help people to connect with themselves? Like you talk about connecting the mind, the body, the spirit. How do you help them to come to that place of connecting with themselves? Because divorce can be a trauma, and it can kind of take us away from our mind, body, and spirit. How do you help them to reconnect with it, or connect with it for the first time?
Absolutely. And often it is the first time that they're, pausing to connect with the inside and that self-image. And so there's different processes that come with this. There's the top-down approach, which is the coaching side, where we use the thinking mind to offer ideas for consideration. And that's about 5% of your brain power. And then there's the bottom-up approach. And so that's using nervous system techniques, somatic techniques, clinical hypnotherapy, and just different embodiment techniques. And what's important about both is the top down, you have a preconceived idea of what should be. You think it should be this, and that's what I'm going to sort of dictate to the rest of my body. But the bottom up approach actually has no preconceived notion of what should be. So it allows us to use this friction that's created from the divorce or separation as a place for pause to see, what am I not aware of? And those patterns can come up somatically or through hypnotherapy or through nervous system techniques, and they can rise up to the thinking mind to give you some knowledge of things about you that you didn't have. It's all data. If we look at it as data, it makes it less heavy.
Wow. So the somatic nervous system is delivering data to the mind.
Always.
So can you explain that
Sure.
just a little deeper
Sure,
for me?
absolutely. There's Dr. Stephen Porges's work, the polyvagal theory, and he shares that the vagus nerve, well, there's two, but the vagus nerve brings 80, I think it's 80% of the data from the body to the brain. And when you look at work from HeartMath, because I'm HeartMath certified, they say that the heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And when you look at that, just from like an observer perspective way out here, you realize that if we're only doing top down, holy smokes, are we missing stuff? And if you have the core belief that everything is happening for you, not to you, and you have a place where you've hit some friction, then you've got to, I feel, I use that Diane Ackerman quote, when I reach the end of my life, I want to know that I've lived the width of it, not just the length of it. And I think tradition teaches us to speed through pain, hurry up and get through it. Speed through the win too, because I work with a lot of high performers. Look at what's next. Oh, sorry, I'm banging the table. I'm getting animated. But what's next? And if we just pause and say, go wide. So if you're going through a divorce, you're going through a separation, try not to rush through it. Go wide to the edges, because you know what? You're inherently resilient. You're capable to go to the edges and see what those lessons are, because if you don't, they come back in another form.
In the form of repeated patterns and behaviors in your future?
Usually.
Future relationships?
Usually the same, it sometimes comes back in the same thing, a relationship, but sometimes it comes back disguised as a health crisis. Sometimes it comes back as a financial crisis. But it comes back. Mm-hmm. And I think this philosophy that's readily pushed because, a low self-image sells products. A well-regulated human doesn't buy a lot of things because you feel really good. And so this push for victimhood makes us sometimes forget that we can go wide. You actually already have it in you to go wide. You just need the right guide.
So how do you take that switch out of victimhood into empowerment? How do you make that switch?
Super good question. Super slow. Right? So the way that we make any switch, it has to be long lasting. Otherwise, there's codependence between you and your therapist or your guide or your coach, right? So the best way to do it is to learn to be self-reliant and build self-trust, which is another pillar of the work that I do, is when you learn to trust yourself slowly and steadily, then you can understand how big you are and that you're going to fall 100%. You're going to fall and you're going to be able to get back up because you can count on yourself. So it's taking those small steps that say, if I made a decision to have a walk today and I don't have it, there's an erosion of trust. If I say to myself, I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. And a lot of us just do this like that and we just let it go. We break commitments to ourselves all the time. But when you start to recommit to yourself and build that trust and be your best friend and learn to like yourself, holy smokes, does stuff change.
Wow. That is massive on so many scales. We break promises to ourselves all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. And we're completely unaware of those.
Absolutely. And the best way to rebuild is only work one day at a time for those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how do you help people to reintegrate with themselves to come to that point of connecting the heart and the brain? And can you speak more to, maybe this is two questions, but can you speak more about HeartMath and how you use that in your work?
Absolutely.
And what it is, for that matter, because a lot of our listeners probably haven't heard of HeartMath.
Right. Absolutely. HeartMath is an organization that I believe for 30 years or more has been doing a great deal of research in this space. And what drew me to them a long time ago is I was actually looking to connect more with our roots in India and understanding a little bit more about the power of the ancient teachings. And so many of those are actually grounded and rooted in that heart and brain coherence. And that's how I began that journey into HeartMath. And I love their science. I love their tech. And so I have a machine in my office where I can measure your coherence and see it on my computer. But there are also at-home tools that HeartMath offers that are really low barrier to entry. They're not super expensive. And you could do them at home or train with me in building resilience and learning some of the coherence techniques. But they're all very powerful and very grounding for the body.
So in addition to HeartMath certified, you're also a clinical hypnotherapist. For listeners that don't understand what hypnotherapy is, how would you explain it?
Hypnotherapy, I think, is really misunderstood just because of stage hypnotists. I'm going to make you quack like a duck.
That's what a lot of people have said. I don't want to be hypnotized
Yes.
because I'm afraid that I'll lose control
Absolutely.
and that I'll do something that I don't want to do.
Absolutely. And that is not what it is whatsoever. So basically, it's a bottom-up approach. So all that we're doing is giving that monkey mind a banana and saying, let your conscious mind just, have a seat on the bench, have a little banana just to keep it at ease. But you're fully aware of everything that's happening. So it's not meant to be a lack of awareness. So what we're doing is talking to the subconscious mind. We're talking to that bottom up to try to get that data to the thinking mind and to the somatic body for you to get information about yourself. And so it's extraordinarily powerful because it allows us to access your biggest resource because it's all already there. And it's a gentle progression into a state of relaxed awareness. So it's not losing control whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. What are the misconceptions that some of your clients might have had when you discuss, okay, I'm
Sure.
going to hypnotize you now? Like,
Yeah.
How does that come into the conversation and do they have resistance? Is there misconceptions around it?
Usually the people that come to me are, again, through referrals, so they already know somebody that had a life-changing experience through the hypnotherapy. So I don't have that per se, but I imagine most people do. So I think that the questions are mostly around, did I do it right?
Mm-hmm.
And, that performance critic that says, make sure you do a good job. And I think I do a good enough job getting my clients feeling safe and supported and seen that goes away pretty quickly, and creating an environment for them to feel, oh gosh, I'm going to be held here, or that this person is strong enough to hold me. Because sometimes people feel like their problems are so big because they are that way on the inside of them. It's such a big load. And they need to meet somebody that can actually help them carry that load. And so the process is very straightforward, actually. And I'm doing some group sessions even now, which I didn't do before because of boys' sports schedules. But it's a very gentle modality.
I can attest to the power of hypnotherapy because I've been in a few of your hypnotherapy sessions, and I can say that they have been transformative for me. So definitely life-changing. How does hypnotherapy differ from talk therapy?
It's that bottom up versus top down approach. So talk therapy has so many great benefits, and but we're talking to the thinking mind, and I'm talking to the subconscious mind. And in coaching, I talk to the thinking mind. So I do both. I feel, for me as a human, it's different for everybody. I really like getting into all the systems. So I like having an understanding of all parts of me and my experience. So I have an understanding of both.
So how can somebody use hypnotherapy if they're going through a really contentious divorce or betrayal or just even a major life change outside of divorce? How can they use hypnotherapy to help themselves?
Well, first of all, establishing how they'd like to feel, how they'd prefer to feel. And then we talk about that and we work through different things. So sometimes we do parts work, which is more like internal family systems. Our subconscious mind often has different parts that take over and want to be CEO. And they shouldn't be. They should have a seat at the table, but not running the show. And I remember this book called Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. Do you remember that book? So I used to read it to my boys, and this pigeon, the bus driver would say, I'm just going to have to leave the bus for a minute. Don't let this pigeon drive the bus. And the pigeon was begging, please, 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 let me drive the bus. Let me drive the bus. Pigeon has no arms, like little feet that don't reach the gas pedals. And quite often our inner critic or different parts come in and they want to be the pigeon that wants to drive the bus. And we let them. We let them. We don't realize it's the pigeon, right? And so going in and doing regression work is so powerful to find the point in time where that part decided it was going to take this role not to hurt you, never to hurt you, always to protect you. And we can offer that part a different job, or we can offer it to disperse into light. And the same thing happens with age regression. We can go back and find the point in time without re-traumatizing you and being able to address the point where this issue started. I've seen the most incredible changes happen when we do regression work.
Mm-hmm.
And, people have lost those things that weigh them down after them. And it doesn't happen in one session. These things take repetition, right? You have to do it a few times.
So can the subconscious hold on to old identities and old stories?
Yeah, it's always holding them. Yeah, always. So the neural pathway that's connected to that old pattern stays. We just build a stronger, bigger road to a new response.
So how do we release those then, so that we're not using those old identities?
The less you travel them, those roads grow over with weeds and brush and stuff. So we're basically creating new pathways in the brain that allow you to walk the path that you choose, not the path that was put there for you by the code from your parents or caregivers.
When you ask somebody, how do you want to feel? And they want to feel some way that's outside of their old identities, but they've never felt that way before. How do they connect with that person that they want to feel like, or that person they want to be, when they've not had the experience of being in that place?
Such a good question. Actually, there's a researcher, I think his name is Hal Hirschfield from the UCLA, and he does future self research. And on MRIs, the studies have shown that when we look ahead at our future self, it actually is registering as a complete stranger. So your question is so valid, because your future self will show up like a stranger. So would you sacrifice for a stranger? Absolutely not. Would you go the extra mile and do no, it's not going to happen. So then if that's the science of it, what we do is we reverse engineer and say, well, how can we make the future self somebody that is in your heart, or someone you can relate to, versus a complete stranger? And so I use hypnotherapy, I use nervous system techniques, somatic techniques, or just a visualization to help that future self become somebody you want to be friends with.
Mm-hmm.
And learn to like that person and bring them in your inner circle, because your future self knows the path for you and can give you advice when you get in that state.
Wow. So many people, when they're going through divorce, they feel stuck in repeating patterns. So they choose similar partners, they ignore the red flags, they minimize their needs. And regardless if they're looking at another relationship, I think people often minimize their needs. How do you break those subconscious patterns to help people create new patterns?
I make them work. Oh goodness, I have a system that I use, and I'm in the fall. I built out a training program that I was planning to launch soon. But in it's systematic. So going through the understanding of the self-image, going through understanding self-trust. But there's two other things that are really important: sovereignty and congruence. So we often ignore that we're incongruent. We show up as somebody on the outside of that we aren't on the inside. And so taking all of these steps and formulas to get you congruent, get you sovereign, get you trusting yourself and talking to yourself like you like yourself. And so it's a really big answer that I can't give fully because it would take months. But it's systematic for me to go through. And there's also really cool research on memory reconsolidation. So we can actually do work that is thinking mind, bringing back memory and challenging it with current realities that challenge this old pattern and program. So there's some really cool work we can do, but it just takes some time.
So you teach resilience.
Yes.
What does resilience actually look like beyond your inspirational quote? I hear the word resilience all the time, so it's almost overused. So let's talk about what it looks like in its true form.
Agreed. Well, your daughters will remember this, but when I teach resilience to younger people, I like to use metaphors and analogies that make it land for them. Because what is that? What is the self-image? And so I like to use the idea of a trampoline. And so if you think of yourself as a trampoline, people are going to be jumping on you all the time because that's what you're there for, right? No, not kidding. But people will jump on you and you will dip. But it is up to you to bounce them back and say, that belongs to you, not to me. So resilience is elasticity. It is being able to take a dip and then come back and settle into what is you and being okay with you. And so it's very different than being a swimming pool and having them jump in and you absorb all of them. So to me, that's the easiest definition of resilience is that elasticity.
So how do you help your clients build resilience on a subconscious level then so that they can bounce those people back up?
Sure. Well, different techniques, the clinical hypnotherapy, I'm do somatic work, nervous system work. And then I also use different tools such as a nervous system retunement program that I have. I use neurofeedback. So I love mixing technology with the old ancient systems I have in place because it's that ancient science and the modern mind come together so beautifully. So I really like to look at the whole
picture.
The whole picture.
And so in helping people to create independence, emotional, spiritual, personal independence, because when, somebody's going through a divorce, they're now going from a we to me.
Yes.
And they have to create independence where they may not be comfortable in that. How do you help people and how do you use your strategies and tools to help them create that independence on all levels?
Well, first of all, I ensure that they don't become codependent with me, right? Because what happens often when when people are leaving relationships, that then they lean on somebody maybe too hard. So psychoeducation is a really big part of the independence. My analogy for this one, because we're going to play, is if you look at life, we are all a bunch of unicycles moving through the world. And it is your job and your responsibility to keep your unicycle moving and upright. It is not anyone's responsibility. You come here alone, you leave here alone. And that's actually really empowering if you think about it. And then we come together in relationship to form a bicycle. And we can move together faster and more efficiently. And sometimes on your bicycle, on your journey, you might be pulling harder than your partner. And I think the separations and divorce happens when you've been pulling too hard for too long by yourself. You're dragging, right? And so then you go back and come back into your unicycle and say, how can I be responsible for keeping this unicycle upright? What are the tools I need? What are the supports I need? What are the resources? All of that. And become so sovereign. This is your opportunity to be really, really sovereign and take your power back because you've had it all along. It just maybe wasn't used for your unicycle. Maybe it was being diluted.
So before you go and find another two-wheel bicycle, make sure you know how to master your unicycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you walk us through what a hypnotherapy session would look like?
Sure. Should I hypnotize you?
Again?
I'm kidding. No. Well, yeah, it starts off with, I do a thorough assessment. because certain states and individuals, don't qualify for hypnotherapy. So very mindful of epilepsy or active psychosis or things like that are, really delicate situations. So just making sure the person qualifies and then making sure I have permission, right? That, does this something you really want? And we go so slow and light. So the first session, you're not going to go deep. It's really building trust in yourself because I'm just a guide. And so the real anchor of the process is you, because all language is hypnotic. We are being hypnotized all the time through our day. We just might not be aware of it. And so coming back and understanding how to desensitize you from the world so you can go quiet and go in, and then centering you, and then deepening you, and then offering the suggestions that you and I have agreed on that match your needs and desires, creating anchors for you. So the subconscious mind might see this anchor through your day and is reminded of that state, because I feel like that's really powerful. And then really being respectful of the time post-session, because you're still very suggestible. So Zoom works really well for hypnotherapy sessions, I think, because you're not getting in a car and driving around giving someone the bird right after you're in the depths of, glory.
Going back into your state.
So it keeps you in your state longer. So it's very important to be really aware of the post-session, because you're so impressionable then. And so I think it's a delicate process from beginning to end. Delicate in the sense that it's to be honored, not delicate and fragile, right? So it's that's a summary of it.
So you spoke about anchors. Can you elaborate on that a little more in terms of what those anchors are, what that looks like? Because maybe our audience isn't really clear on what that might be.
Sure. Anchors can be used in different techniques all across the board. Almost every modality uses anchors in one form or another. You might see people like Tony Robbins. He has his anchor. I won't do it because my dress and stuff will go all over the place. But, he does this sort of thing where he hits his hands together. Some athletes use anchors for performance. And so this anchor is subconscious, where I might say every time you see the color green, you'll remember what this state feels like. This is a natural state. It belongs to you. It's inside of you. And the other anchors could be self-hypnosis anchors, so helping you understand that you can actually reach that state all on your own in different ways. So we can decide that before, or I might decide that on my own and give those to you if I feel like you're ready, right? So things like that, where a word might remind you of your internal state.
And when you're working with a client, you ensure before you start that process that they feel completely safe and secure in their environment before it even starts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing this since really 2009. So that kind of stuff is really important because we think we know, but we don't know what a person is going through. We can't ever know what another individual is experiencing on the inside. So being mindful and cautious in the process is so important.
What are the roles that the body play in healing? So when you're going through a divorce, you're in this state of stress, you're in your head, you're in your thinking brain all the time. How does the body play into that? And do you see things happen with the body while people are in that stress, and how do you help them with that?
The body plays a really, really big role in managing stress, processing stress, holding stress. The body holds the stories of the life we've lived. And because the brain can't tell the difference between what's real and imagined, sometimes we're holding stories that we haven't actually even experienced. There's a lot there. It's a really big conversation. But there's something really simple we can start with, and you could do it now if you'd like. But it's doing something called a body scan. So imagine that, when you're at the grocery teller and that red light passes the barcode. And so just imagining that you're going through the grocery scanner and this light's going to just scan your body. and slow enough that you can become aware of what are my shoulders feeling, where, what am I noticing in the body? So if you would like, you can close your eyes and try that and see, what does your body have to share?
My body is tight, holding stress in my shoulders.
Yeah.
It's holding on to something.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and I've been telling people this for years, but now Harvard's backing me up, but you can actually put your hand on that part of your body and you could talk to that part of your body and say, oh gosh, you're holding a lot, aren't you? You can let that go. I've got you. Right? You can feel that.
Yeah.
And the body, once it's acknowledged, says, oh, she finally heard me. I don't have to start a fire here. Right? Because that's what happens when we listen to the whispers or the knock at the door. The house doesn't need to get burned down. And so if you schedule 3 times a day a body scan, wow, so simple, so free, you can change so much of the way that your day unfolds. And especially when you're going to bed at night, you can leave that stuff on the mattress. You don't need to take that into your dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
And does it help to release then if your body is telling the stories of the past and you're doing that body scan on a regular basis, what is it doing for your future?
It's making it available to you so you can let go of the old story to make room for new. Do you know that simply humming or gargling is known to improve vagal tone and to make room in your body for the future you? You can improve vagal tone by humming and gargling.
Really?
Yeah. Ton of science on it. You can look it up, but it is so powerful how, if we include our body in the conversation, how it shifts gears for us. We're not driving in 5th gear, which is, fight or flight, and we're not in dorsal, stuck in 1st gear, barely moving. That's what happens in stress. It's a push and then a collapse. A push and a collapse, when really we should be like that little heartbeat in the middle in that 3rd gear, 4th gear, where we're sort of cruising a bit. And so learning how to integrate the body in the conversation allows us to slow down the nervous system response.
Now let's talk about the vagus nerve and releasing of the vagus nerve. I've done some vagus nerve therapy with you and it was transformative, but I have no idea how that happened and how I released that trauma, but I felt like a different person after, and I found myself showing up as somebody different.
Mm-hmm. The treatment you did works on the autonomic nervous system. It's created by Dr. Stephen Porges, and it's a passive program. So we're bypassing the thinking mind and working on the inner ear muscles and bones and the vagus nerve and sending signals of safety to the brain. But the most important part of the program is titration, because we just assume that we should just flood ourselves with safety and that's the right thing to do. And it's not, because our systems have been working really hard to keep us safe by staying alert or freezing. Our nervous system is always in response to our safety and our well-being. And so doing a program like that, we introduce safety like we're introducing food to a new baby. Just very gently, a little bit every day. And every day the safety shows up and then self-trust is developed. It's like, oh, I can count on you. You're showing up every day. And so it's a physiological program. And that's why it works, because you can't outthink it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So do you work with clients to help them expand in terms of full depth or breadth, or we talked about width of their lives?
Absolutely. I like to work with people for a period of time if we're dealing with a crisis. But then after that, my goal is to make sure they're self-sufficient. And if we continue to work together, it's on growth. And so peak performance is just a different gear, but it's always there and available for sure. They're the same techniques, just used differently.
And so what does that expansion look like, and what's getting in the way? Like, what is blocking that expansion for people?
Them.
You say it like it's so obvious.
You. Me. I'm in there too. I'm constantly working on myself and not working on myself, coming home to myself, pardon me. But usually what's in the way is there is an old code, and that old code says I have to be loyal to the patterns and programs from my family, and it's uncovering that was even there. Most of us don't even know that it's there. And then deciding would I like to keep it or not. And sometimes people like it. They want to keep it. And sometimes they're saying, no, I'd actually like something different. And then it's deciding how to map the path there.
So can you share a transformation story of somebody who made a major shift in their life through this work?
Sure. Let me think. You? I'm kidding. I'm like, I have to be careful and mindful for privacy because...
Of course, it's anonymous.
It's anonymous. Okay. A transformation story is a younger mom that I was working with who was in a relationship. And I'm not a clinical counselor or a psychiatrist. So it's a generalization when I say somebody with those sort of narcissistic tendencies, controlling, was videotaping her, following her, knew her every move, every, no sovereignty for her whatsoever. And she lived in this darkness and in this fear. And in working together, this relationship had been in her life for a very, very long time, started when she was quite young. And we worked together. And in that first session, she looked at me and she just said, "Oh, I think I can do it because you're here." And I thought, don't rush. Sometimes you have that intuition and you just want to rush through it. And sure enough, slow and steady, she was able to exit this very difficult and I would say abusive relationship where she didn't have a voice. She couldn't have conversations without him listening in. He had a pulse on her at all times. And doing the work with me, and fast forward, she was able to leave. She has full custody of her children. And she's creating a life for herself that is free, free of that. And it's on her terms. And it's, really challenging when we meet somebody when we're very young and we head into the most beautiful thing in our imagination. And we want this person and our partner to be what we believe they are in our understanding of their potential. Oftentimes, I think women and men stay in relationship because they're working on the potential versus the person. And they stay too long because they believe that this potential can come to light, and it doesn't always. And so she was able to, have that time and say about her kids and to dictate the trajectory of their lives and be able to let them be free to do the sports that they wanted because he wanted to be controlling athletics and intellect and everything. So it was very much a controlling situation. And so that's one example.
Wow. That's amazing. So what is one belief that you wish any person leaving a marriage or being left or in a relationship could adopt today?
Can I pose it as a question instead?
Mm-hmm.
I have a question that I created that I feel allows you to not only audit, but also change your state. And it's, why is my life so great? And so even in the thick of the pain, if you ask that question, why is my life so great? There is going to be something there that can change your state and give you access to your resources so you can be sovereign and you can move through the day and go wide into this experience that you're having because you have so much going for you that you may not realize. So that allows us to remove the blinders that come with stress, because stress is contraction and asking questions is expansion. So even if you don't use this question, pick a question that allows you to expand into this, because you are capable, you are elastic, and you got this.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. I could talk to you for hours, and after knowing you for years, I even learned so much today. So thank you for sharing. I really appreciate you being here, Ranbir. Thank you.
It was such an honor. Thank you for having me.
Ranbir, thank you for joining us for such a powerful soul-level conversation. What we talked about today is something so many people struggle with silently: the loss of self-image, the disconnection between mind and body, and the fear of rebuilding. Hypnotherapy and conscious healing gives us tools to change not just our thoughts, but our beliefs. And when our beliefs change, our entire life expands. If this episode resonated with you, please share it, subscribe, and leave a review. And remember, you are not a victim of your circumstances. You're the author of what comes next. This is The Divorce Circle. I'm your host, Sabeena Bubber. Until next time, honor your truth, trust yourself deeply, and choose the life that you're ready for.